You know, if you've ever looked into autism interventions, it can feel, well, overwhelming. It's like you're trying to navigate a new city, but every map you find is in a different language. Today, we're going to try and clear up some of that confusion. We're going to demystify one key area and hopefully bring some real clarity to the conversation. Okay, let's get into it.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll tackle what I'm calling the intervention maze, that feeling of being lost that so many people experience. Then we'll introduce a new acronym, DRBI, and really break down what it stands for, what its two foundational pillars are. After that, we'll see what it actually looks like in practice, and then, this is a big one, we'll compare it to another common approach, NDBI. And finally, we'll talk about why this new term is such a big deal.
All right, so before we can really appreciate the solution, we have to get to grips with the problem. Why do we even need a new term in the first place? Well, it all starts with this feeling of being trapped in an intervention maze.
I mean, seriously, if you've spent any time researching support for autistic children, you've been bombarded with terms like these, right? Developmental, behavioral, and the newer one, NDBI, which stands for Naturalistic Developmental Behavioral Interventions. It is so easy to get lost in this alphabet soup, and it turns out there's a really good reason why it's all so confusing.
And this quote right here, it just hits the nail on the head. For years, behavioral approaches have been pretty clearly defined. You kind of know what you're getting. But the word developmental, it's been used all over the place for all sorts of things. You see these vague labels like social pragmatic or play-based, and it makes it almost impossible for parents and even professionals to know what's what.
So, to cut through all that fog, a group of leading experts got together. They came up with a proposal, a way to create a clear path forward. And here it is. The term is DRBI. It stands for Developmental Relationship-Based Interventions. And the goal here is actually really simple, to finally create a clear, consistent definition for a specific type of intervention that, up until now, has been flying under a bunch of different flags.
And you know, this proposal has some serious weight behind it. This isn't just one person's idea from out of the blue. This definition was put together by an international interdisciplinary team. We're talking experts in pediatrics, psychiatry, special education, the whole shebang. They all got together to answer one single question. What are the core, shared features of this powerful approach?
So, what did they come up with? What exactly makes an intervention a DRBI? Well, it all boils down to two huge foundational ideas. We're calling them the two pillars.
So here they are, the two pillars. Pillar number one, DRBI is grounded in a developmental framework. What that really means is that it starts with a deep belief in a child's own internal motivation to learn and connect. And pillar number two, it has this intense focus on relationships, specifically on making the parent-child bond the main engine for growth and development.
Let's dig into that first pillar for a second. This developmental framework, it sees a child's growth as this natural, unfolding process. It's all built on this idea of innate motivation, which this quote just captures perfectly. It's this belief that all children, including autistic children, have this built-in desire to explore, to connect, to figure things out, even if they express it differently. The whole point of the intervention is just to nurture that drive that's already there.
And that, of course, leads right into the second pillar, relationships. So instead of an expert coming in with a set curriculum, DRBI is all about coaching parents, empowering them. It builds on the fact that nobody knows a child better than their parent. The goal is to help them create these interactions that are just genuinely fun and connecting for both of them. And in the end, the relationship itself is the therapy.
Okay, so that's all the theory. It sounds great, right? But what does it actually look like? What happens in the room day to day? Let's get practical and take a look at DRBI in action.
So the experts who defined this identified 4 core strategies that you see again and again in DRBI models. It all starts with social play. From there, the adult really hones their sensitive responding. That means tuning into the child's signals. That naturally lets you follow the child's lead. And then, once you're both in sync, you can start gently presenting challenges that help them grow.
Let's make this really concrete. We'll take that last strategy, presenting challenges, because it might not sound like what you think. So picture this. A child is totally absorbed, just methodically lining up their toy cars. How does a DRBI approach engage with that?
See, instead of trying to redirect the child to a better activity, The adult joins their world. Just like the source material says, they might playfully toss in a little problem. Maybe a toy bus that doesn't fit the line, or a ramp that changes the whole game. The goal isn't to teach how to play with cars. The goal is to expand on what the child is already interested in and turn it into this fun, shared, back-and-forth interaction. You're building from their intent, not trying to impose your own.
All right, now that we have a pretty good feel for DRBI, it is time for a really important comparison. How does this stack up against NDBI, that other major category of intervention we mentioned? This is where having that clear definition really starts to matter.
Okay, just looking at this table, you can see the differences between these two approaches are, well, they're massive. Let's start at the top. The whole theoretical basis is different. DRBI grows out of a developmental perspective, that idea of innate motivation. NDBI, on the other hand, is rooted in behavioral principles. And that one difference changes everything that follows: how you see behavior, what the adult's role is, and what the ultimate priority of any interaction becomes.
And let's look at this one specific phrase, following the child's lead. You'll hear this said in both approaches, but it means two very different things. In DRBI, like we saw with the cars, it's about joining the child's world to expand their idea and create a real two-way street. In NDBI, following the child's lead is often seen as the perfect moment to embed a teaching opportunity, to work on a specific targeted skill. It's a subtle difference in language, but it leads to a profoundly different interaction.
So, we've defined DRBI, we've broken it down, we've even compared it to NDBI. Let's bring this all home. Why on earth go to all this trouble just to create a new term? Why does this actually matter out there in the real world?
Well, it's because this is so much more than just an academic exercise. This clarity has huge, real-world consequences. When we have a clear definition for DRBI, families and clinicians can finally make truly informed decisions. It means research can be more consistent and reliable, it helps with things like policy and funding, and maybe most importantly, it gives everyone a common language to talk about this stuff so we can all work together to make things better. In the end, this whole effort really boils down to one simple but incredibly powerful idea. The words we use matter. They shape how we think, what we research, and how we help. And that leaves us with a final question to think about. How can something as seemingly small as getting our language straight truly change the entire future of support for autistic children and their families?